Manila, and welcome to Publish Asia 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency Benigno S. Aquino III, President of the Republic of the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Good morning and welcome to the opening ceremonies of Publish Asia 2016 with the theme, Mapping Challenges and Opportunities in the New Asian Media Game. May I now call on the Group Editor-in-Chief, the Post Publishing and Chairman of the One IFRA Asia Pacific Regional Committee, Mr. Pichai Chunsuk Swadi, to give his welcome remarks.
Your Excellency, Benigno Aquino III, President of the Philippines, distinguished guests, colleagues, and fellow journalists. Now more than ever before, as journalists, as editors, publishers, and owners, we face the challenge most acute. Now for many years now, and certainly for decades and more, we're challenged by the ever-changing landscape of media technology. Technological changes have influenced and continue to influence how our readers and viewers consume news and information. The evolving behavioral challenges will also challenge how we tell stories and explain what they mean. It challenges how we operate, affects our profitability, despite the fact that we have more readers than ever before. And as a result, we're compelled to change. Some of us have changed. Others are still in the process of finding that formula or approach. And that's why over the next 2 days, we will meet here again with our colleagues from over 30 countries to listen to the experiences and exchange views in this process of change. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the World Association of Newspapers and News Publishers, WAN-IFRA, and its Asia Pacific Committee, it's indeed a pleasure to welcome you to Publish Asia 2016. We're really thrilled to be back in the Philippines. It's been a long time, Mr. President, since March 2007 when Publish Asia was held here for the first time. And back then, like now, Publish Asia would not have been possible without the support of our Filipino colleagues. And first of all, permit me to allow me to thank my colleagues on the Asia Pacific Committee. Now, I remember 2007 well. We were here in this beautiful and landmark and historic Manila Hotel. My colleagues and I remember the warmth and hospitality of Dr. Emilio T. Yap of the Manila Bulletin. He personally welcomed us in his offices, and it was an honor and a privilege. Today, that warmth and hospitality continues through Chairman Yap and his grandson, Emil, who also serves on the WAN-IFRA Asia Pacific Committee. But equally important is the support by Sandy Preto Romualdez of the Philippine Daily Inquirer. Sandy, unfortunately, is not here with us today, but she is not only on our Asian Pacific Committee, but she also represents you on the World Board of WAN-IFRA. The Manila Bulletin and the Philippine Daily Inquirer has consistently supported WAN-IFRA and Publish Asia over the past decade with their continued presence and representation. But this conference would not have been possible without the support of the supporting Filipino media organizations. Their names are here: the Philippine Star, the Business Mirror, the Manila Times, the Filipino Star Nanyong, and UPMG. To our colleagues in the Philippines, Team Philippines, The WANIFRA salutes you and thanks you. It would also be remiss of me if I did not thank our key sponsors, and their names are up on the board. Without these media partners and sponsors, you know who you are. Your participation and continued support each year at Publish Asia makes conferences like this possible. And to our speakers who have traveled near and far, and to all our participants, thank you for joining us in Publish Asia 2016, because without you, the jigsaw would not be complete. Ladies and gentlemen, today marks the second time Publish Asia is held in the Philippines, but the Philippines can be proud of its 100% record. In 2007, then President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo presided over the opening ceremony of Publish Asia. And today, President Aquino is here with us today. Mr. President, the fact that you're delivering the keynote opening speech at Publish Asia illustrates the importance you give to the role of the press and the media. It clearly shows that the Filipino political leadership values and appreciates the role of the Philippine media of not just telling stories, explaining what they mean, but also their role of inspiring debate, comment, and exchange of ideas to make a difference for the betterment of the Philippine people. In Thailand, we have a saying that politicians and the press and media are like teeth and tongue. Sometimes the government is the teeth, and we are the tongue. Sometimes it's the other way around. The roles often interchange, but both are inseparable in a democratic society. Mr. President, you honor us with your presence today, and on behalf of WANIFRA and the Asia Pacific Committee and all our participants here, thank you kindly for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pichay Chunsukswadi. At this point, may I now call on the Secretary of the Presidential Communications Operations Office, the Honorable Herminio B. Sani Coloma, to introduce our guest of honor, and keynote speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency Benigno S. Aquino III, President, Republic of the Philippines.
No, please sit down. Thank you. Thank you. Secretary Sani Coloma, Mr. Pichay Chun Suk Sawadi, I hope I didn't murder your name. Mr. Thomas Jacob, Domicilio Yap, officers and members of the World Association of Newspapers and News Publishers, Asia Pacific Committee, representatives from global publications and international print media, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Perhaps I should start by apologizing for my tardiness. You know, my father was part of your profession a few decades back, and I'm sure he's watching our proceedings today. And as I viewed the speech I'm about to deliver, I was not exactly happy with it. And I do represent our country, and I wanted to make a good impression on behalf of our people that unfortunately caused my delay in attending your gathering. Allow me to start in this manner. 16 years ago, my mother, no longer president at that time, spoke at one of our major universities' Center for Journalism, referencing a hostage-taking incident in Mindanao, the southernmost part of our country. She told of how journalists seeking close contact with the hostages and hostage-takers, or as she put it then, journalists seeking a scoop likewise became captives, with their watches, laptops, and shoes taken from them. After narrating that incident, my mother posed a number of questions which I believe remain relevant not only in that particular context or to Filipino reporters, but to each and every member of the industry today and in the years to come. Allow me to repeat some of those questions now. I quote, "Are the reporters telling what they see or what they think readers will pay to read? Do they understand what they see? Are they talking to the right people, or are they just retailing propaganda?" Close quotes. To put it very simply, my mother was questioning their dedication to the two most important values of the profession, namely integrity and truth. Your dedication to these two values is especially important in light of your expansion to new media technologies, which are the crux of your discussions today. We all know there has been a great shift away from the primacy of print to a 24/7 news cycle, where it only takes a single tweet to break news, where anyone can report on anything at any time and have it reach anywhere in the world. These new forms of media challenge, of new media, challenge what print, at its best, is supposed to represent: depth and breadth, context, and a clear delineation between opinion and news. These past few years, I've witnessed and even been at the center of some attempts to balance traditional print and new media. For example, not too long ago, I took part in a forum live streamed through the internet and documented through social media, with articles to chronicle the event the following day. On the other hand, I'm also told that the majority of, if not all, outlets have demonstrated a tendency to sensationalize titles or post only provocative portions of articles online, purportedly to encourage people to go through the whole piece, a tactic which I understand the generation younger than mine calls clickbait. Never mind if the reader chooses only to view that particular snippet and assume that they have been presented with a complete story. The entire situation is complicated further by the fact that these stories, published also in print, do not seem to adhere to any set standard. More often than not, the art of crafting headlines seems to favor embellishment and innuendo as opposed to the facts. Some articles seem to be written with blatant bias, while others fail to adequately represent the situation accurately. Over the years, I've increasingly wondered about this trend in light of the fact that print's greatest advantage is that it can tell the complete story, whether in one article or in a series, and have that read by a still strong readership. For instance, today I'm certain that you find yourselves increasingly read by citizens from all around the world. This is perhaps due to the fact that many nations are increasingly turning to our region, viewing us as wellsprings of opportunity for collective growth. They seek information about us, which you are well poised to give, and I believe you would be among the first to admit that you would likewise benefit from painting a complete picture. Another example, Myanmar right now is undergoing a very significant transition. Print and indeed all forms of media can impair that transition by highlighting fears and unfounded speculation. The opposite path, what we are glad to be seeing, is that they have lent their support to this transition by highlighting the good news, by telling the truth about the people's sentiments, their dreams, and their efforts to realize that through democratic means. It is true that your job is much more complicated today because of the need to expand your operations to new media forms, which have their own limitations in terms of dissemination. At the same time, dissemination does not matter so much as your most basic responsibility, which is to deliver information. Information that the people can trust, that can lead to fruitful discussions on issues of national and global importance, and that can even lead to positive transformation. This is the value and the service that you must provide. It is when the distinction between opinion and straightforward news telling that your profession, when there is a blurring of that line, it is then that your profession is endangered. This is not only a matter of principle, it is also about practicality. Sensational headlines and articles composed of controversial rumors, for example, might increase your circulation marginally today. What happens, however, when the people notice your tendency towards such, when they realize that your articles are entertaining, perhaps, but cannot be verified and consequently trusted? In the long run, will they not seek out alternative sources of information, sources that they know will tell them the truth? In the Philippines, national and local elections will take place in a little over a month. We face a fork in the road. Will we choose to continue treading the straight path of the past few years, or will we choose the opposite? In 2010, I promised Filipinos that when I stepped down from office, I would leave behind a country in a far better situation. We believe the successes and reforms of our administration are enough to help our countrymen make the right decision in the upcoming elections. Even now, I continue to do my part. At the same time, I'm cognizant that when we head to the polls, my vote will be just like anyone else's. When I have voted, I will wait for the results with the rest of the country. It is somewhat different for you. Media, and perhaps especially print media, has a special role to play before, during, and after our elections, as it does at any critical time in even your own countries. We Filipinos will need a just, comprehensive accounting of this historic time, and you are in the best position to do that. Candidates are vying for the highest post in the land. They are trying to win the people's trust in a variety of ways, from promises to attempts to smear mud on the names of their rivals, from presentations of their records of service to curses and strong language. All of this appears in your pages. Some more sensational candidates featured more prominently than others, I point out. Everything you publish is indeed devoured by millions. In a very real way, you are luckier than these candidates. By far and large, you, the press, already have our people's trust. This alone reflects the magnitude of your responsibility to wider society, to disseminate information instead of speculation, to foster higher levels of discourse instead of becoming a rumor mill, to empower citizenries and nations instead of tearing them down. It is my deepest hope that you will never forget this, that whether in the Philippines or elsewhere in the world, you live and work accordingly with the greater good of the public in mind. Thank you. May you have a very productive conference.
Thank you, Mr. President. We shall now have the opportunity to have an open forum with His Excellency. May we request the Honorable Secretary Sani Coloma to please be our moderator.
Our first question will be asked by Mr. Nguyen Wang Nat.
Dear Mr. President and everybody, I'm from Vietnam News Agency. Yeah. Dear Mr. President, in the final year of your presidency, what do we do to push ASEAN and China act responsibly to maintain peace and stability in the region as one with respect for international laws such as UNCLOS and DOC? Thank you.
I think it's on the public record what we have done. Perhaps I can start. In 2012 in Phnom Penh, we did raise with the ASEAN brothers the fact that it was the 10th anniversary of the attempt to come up with a code of conduct for parties in the South China Sea. And that in 2002, there was an attempt, it failed. We came up with the DOC. 10 years after, we still didn't have the code of conduct, and we reiterated that point. So having said that, I think in the various fora that we have been party to, specifically in ASEAN, also in the arbitration case that we did file, we want to attempt a resolution at resolving all of the, shall we say, tensions that affect the South China Sea. In various opportunities we've had to talk with other world leaders, we have made our case as to what we believe should be the situation in this particular body of water. We point out that about, in one estimate, there's 40% of world commerce that has to traverse this water. All governments, we believe, are there for the betterment of their people or betterment of their lives. And a period of instability does not help in fostering prosperity for all. So we believe we have been true to our word of looking for a rules-based response to resettling this matter that has been festering for several decades. And we're glad to note that more and more are joining our position that there has to be a solution to this issue, again, based on international law, based on a rules-based approach in resolving the matter. And we are glad that our voice has been heard and the voice of others who are similarly situated has been noted, and there has been positive movements towards resolving this particular crisis.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
May I now call on Mr. Phan Tai Kong.
Good morning, Mr. President and everyone. I come from Vietnam and I'm working for Thanh online newspaper. And the second question is still about the Southeast Asia Seas issue. So as you know, everyone know, the big concerns in the ASEAN now is to focus on the Southeast Asia issue as China rising the muscle in the area. What can we call China threat? And in your opinion, the conflict may lead to the war, and what should Asian community should do to prevent the risk as well as the wrongdoing of China on the area? And the follow-up question is, Japan and Philippines recently have been embracing the military cooperation. And what the role will Chairman place in Philippine master plan, especially in the Southeast Asia Sea issue? Thank you, Mr. President.
Sorry, I had to digest the question. What I think the first part of the question is what should
Well,
ASEAN do or Asian do?
Yeah, the first question is, might the risk, the risk can lead to the war when the conflict on the South China, Southeast Asia Sea? Yeah.
I think all countries, all claimant countries, no, in the South China Sea recognize, and other countries that are adjacent to the sea that are not claimant countries all realize that war is a futile exercise. There is nobody stands to gain, and in fact, the whole world stands to lose if it does amount to war. The Philippines, for instance, renounces war as an instrument of foreign policy that is embedded in our constitution. We have no illusions of ever trying to match, trying to engage anybody in an arms race or in a military buildup. We would rather devote our resources to the classical economic argument of the butter side rather than the gun side of choosing where to put our resources in. Having said that, when you have a situation where that we believe that instability comes from the fact that you have diametrically opposed, shall we say, viewpoints. On the one hand, China says they have a 9-dash line, they have a historical right to practically the entire South China Sea. We say that we are both signatories to UNCLOS. UNCLOS gives us a certain set of entitlements and obligations, and that stability has to come about when there is clarity as to each one's entitlements rather than what one wants to assert out of national interest. Now, this, I think the main point that we want to raise is that this is a matter that concerns every country, even those who are very far from this particular body of water, where trade is so essential to fostering prosperity for all, which is the main raison d'etre, the main reason for being of every government, which is to improve its people's lot in life. The uncertainty breeds instability. Instability does not promote prosperity. Therefore, let us resolve with certainty the issues that are before us. Who is entitled to what, and what is each one's obligations relative to these entitlements. And having resolved that, then we can proceed to improve all of our relations because there is certainty in how we are supposed to deal with each other. And that it's no longer a question of whether one possesses more economic might or more military might, but rather what is it that is embodied in the laws that govern all of us that we should be religiously adhering to. So if that situation is solved, then we manage the crisis, we bring down the tensions, and we avert any potential for any conflict. Thank you.
And the related question is, in the Chinese, Taiwan and Philippines have been rising military cooperation. And what the role Taiwan plays in Philippines' master plan, especially in Southeast Asia Seas issue?
Well, it does. I assume you're referring to all of these islands that are being those islands. The issue about the environmental impact of the same. It does matter to us. If you look at representations of the so-called 9-dash line, you will note that as far as the Philippines is concerned, we practically lose the West Coast. We have almost nothing left of our West Coast. We're left with the East Coast. We're supposed to have a 36,000 kilometer coastline. We're supposed to have an EEZ of 200 stretching from those baselines. And suddenly, we're going to lose about half if we agree to this position. Now, it does impact on our policies in that we have had to invest in our maritime domain awareness. We have had to shall we say, accelerate the modernization of even our armed forces for our own self-defense needs, we might have to undergo various aspects of our own military capabilities that have never been part of our needs. For instance, we are a natural transit point into the Pacific, and we are now studying whether or not we do need submarine force. We are buffing. I probably should stop talking about what we're doing to enhance it, but the bottom line is this situation does call upon us to devote a lot more resources than previously. Also, it has necessitated us to have this as one of the priority issues that have to be tackled as far as foreign policy is concerned. Developmental. It impact currently the lives of our fisher folk who have been fishing in these waters for eons. It does impact the economies to which these fisher folk of ours are engaged in. Hence, there is that need to finally resolve this matter, or at least accelerate the process of resolving this matter to the benefit of all parties concerned.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
The next question will come from Mr. Wat Kiao Tu.
Hello, Mr. President.
Hello.
Hi, I am Rachel Du from Myanmar, from Frontier Myanmar Weekly magazine. I would like to ask two questions. The first question is, with elections a few weeks away, the Liberal Party's candidates for president and vice president are pulling in the 20 to 27% range. Why are a majority of Filipinos looking for other alternatives and not clamoring for another 6 years of Daan Meduet? What will happen to your reform agenda if Ma Rohak does not win? And what are the risks for the country of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. winning the vice presidency? Number one question, yes.
Okay. It's true, they're polling in the 2027 bracket. But perhaps what is important is not where they are now, but where they came from. Not too long ago, they were polling in the single-digit figures and very low single-digit. If I remember correctly, our vice presidential candidate was polling at about 1%. So there has been a dramatic rise in their numbers. And perhaps in their defense, or in defense of the party, Secretary Rojas not too long ago was still the Secretary of the Interior and Local Government, was busy attending to his work rather than primarily campaigning. The opponents have been campaigning since, there seems to be a truism in the Philippines that the start of the campaign period officially was it's like a week ago or so. But unofficially, the start of the campaign period is the day after the elections, for the next elections supposed to be in this country. So we have opponents who have been campaigning for the longest time and have, and let's admit it, they had more, in a sense, stories that were more interesting from a human interest perspective. Okay. Now, by the time our people get to the polling place, they will now have had enough time to really digest the issues and see as to who will actually carry out the reforms that we have been doing. I think even a surface perusal of all of the platforms of our opponents basically say that they will not stop any of our programs, policies, or projects, but rather they will enhance. In fact, perhaps this is unique in the sense that nobody can really be branded as primarily opposition. It seems like everybody wants to say that they will do exactly what we did, but they will do it better. Especially after a recent survey came up, we have a conditional cash transfer program, and that survey basically said 80% of our countrymen will support whoever will continue that particular program. So you had this mad race of everybody claiming how they will improve on the program that we have really expanded greatly. Now, so at the end of the day, we are confident. No? In fact, pretty soon, the main campaigners will be the people who have benefited from all of the reforms that we have instituted in Dang Matuid. Now, as far as the second question is concerned,
Yes, as you know, Myanmar new president swore in the parliament today.
Yes.
So Myanmar will proceed with new president. So as your country has experienced the situation, transition period, like Myanmar today, from military regime to civilian government. So what lesson can be learned from your country for Myanmar? Thanks.
well, I think perhaps the reverse could be, is in a sense, no, more apparent. Um, if we contrast it during the, I have to try to be diplomatic. In the previous election that well, at the time that Madam Aung San Suu Kyi started her house arrest, there is a marked difference between then and now. The dialogue that exists between potentially very extreme poles of your political spectrum is indeed very encouraging. Now, I assume that all of this, all of these politicians, all the major political actors, in your country have the best interests of Myanmar at their heart. Then that dialogue should really be encouraged. That dialogue should continue. That dialogue will eventually lead to a very, very, in a sense, a smooth transition. I'm not saying that you will have heaven by tomorrow, but the bottom line is that when I last met with President Tenzin, this was already after the elections, and I could only be positive after we had discussed the elections in Myanmar, in the sense that he was a person who was talking about the next elections already. He has now the opportunity to attend to the party's needs rather than be divorced from the party's needs and running the government. He was a person who was not bitter about the outcome. He was a person who was, I guess I don't think we can say that he was proud of the results of the elections, but he was proud that he was part of that transition towards having even more stability in your country. And for that, I think we really have to credit President Tenzin amongst others. So again, the lesson here is that they could have been diametrically opposed at some point in time. They have moved towards each other, and that movement towards each other has to be encouraged, because that undoubtedly will redound to the benefit of Myanmar, will undoubtedly benefit ASEAN, will undoubtedly benefit the entire region, and eventually the rest of the world. So we hope that this is just the beginning of seeing the maximum utilization of the potential of Myanmar to the betterment of its people. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. President.
The next question will be asked by Mr. Kai Kim Song.
Would you,
Mr.
I'm
President.
sorry, you didn't answer the question about Senator Marcos. Would you want me to answer that question also? I think it was after our celebration of our EDSA revolution, February 25, where I did make a very pointed statement, that a lot of people got encouraged to remind, especially our younger generation, our revolution happened 30 years ago. We have had a new generation in place, a new generation that is hard put to understand what it was when the Philippines was under martial law. Now, I think I've said it, and at the risk of helping Senator Marcos with this campaign, if at some point in time all he said was, we did mistakes, then allow me to correct these mistakes. But unfortunately, his message has been, I think he's been quoted as saying that was the golden period for the Philippines, which is contrary to the majority's opinion in this country, which he would need, whose support he will need to get elected. So again, at the end of the day, especially for the younger generation of Filipinos, they have now access to various means to make them experience what life was like under our martial law period, which happened from 1972 to 1986. They will realize that this is not consistent with their vision or their aspirations of what their life should be. And then they will answer, I believe, the question in this manner. Should we allow an opportunity, even big at this point in time, for somebody who does not recognize the mistakes of that past to be in a position to commit the same mistakes somewhere in the future? And I think the answer will be a redounding no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, sir.
A very good morning, Mr. President. My name is Kai Kim Song. I'm the editor of the Phnom Penh Post from Cambodia. My colleague from Vietnam asking about the South China Sea possible solution, but I would like to ask your perspectives about the human rights, human trafficking in the regions, this kind of issue, the ISIS, the threat of the terrorists in Brussels and Paris. And also, I would like to know if you're still upset with Cambodian government in 2013 for not able to issue the joint statement. Well, thank you. This is all the question I want to ask. Thank you.
We're not upset. I even tell my counterpart, Premier Humson, I keep calling him my friend. we understand, where whenever one engages in dialogue, and I think I learned this from both my parents and my professors, we want to put ourselves in the other person's shoes if we really want to achieve any level of a dialogue. If all we want is just to expel air and shout at each other, that can be done, but it doesn't lead to any fruitful dialogue. To have a fruitful dialogue, you have to understand where the other person is coming from. You have to ask for that which is possible and not expect the impossible, and that's where you move forward. So categorically, we have no issues with Cambodia or its government. No. At the same time, we hope that the same token that we try to understand their situation, they also understand our situation. Okay. Threat of ISIS, I guess let's start with trafficking first. No? We have, I just have to consult some of my notes. There have been, from 2005 to 2015, in the Philippines, there have been 224 human trafficking convictions. These have been all handed down. 87% of these have been under our watch or under our term. We are very, very serious when it comes to efforts at fighting this trafficking, especially given the fact that we have something like 10 million of our countrymen, about 9.2, 9.4 million of our countrymen outside of the country. We believe that the solution is not really just in the enforcement of the laws, but rather perhaps eliminating the conditions that leaves them vulnerable to such. What does that mean? If jobs are readily available, good jobs that can lead to dignified lives are available within the country, then there are less and less, shall we say, motivation or less opportunities or temptation for them to fall victim to syndicates that engage in trafficking. Towards that end, we have reached a record low in terms of unemployment, again, under our watch. Same with the threat of ISIS. You have disillusioned youth who other people have studied as to how to motivate, how to exploit, how to take advantage of. Again, we should be reaching out to all of these people who potentially can be disaffected. How do we get them to buy into the system? How do we assure them that indeed there is a future for them? How do we address the problems, the issues that confound the world right now with concrete solutions that amount to positive results, so that they do not become so disillusioned that they see, how should I put it, especially in the case of suicide bombers, the only avenue left for them to get anywhere is to do that ultimate act. They have to buy into this life, that there is really indeed a way to address all of their concerns. So what does that mean? There are problems in the Middle East, for instance. There is that very huge problem of the refugee situation, not just in the Middle East, but also within our own region. If we are able to address the problem at the source, if we are able to help in stabilizing these countries so that there is, they can resume some normalcy of their life. That I think is the longer solution, but it also promises the more permanent solution to this current situation. I guess at the end of the day, we should divorce ourselves from the idea that these problems are not ours and therefore they do not merit our attention. Perhaps the mindset now should be all of this, in an increasingly shrinking global milieu, all of these problems eventually will become our problems. So best to address them when they are at their nascent stages rather than when they are so fully blown and intractable already. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We have time for just one more question. I am not sure. Mr. Mas is around. Dr. Satchamurthy.
Hello.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, I'm not going to ask any political questions.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask, and I'm going to ask about trade and development of India and Philippines. Coming to the point, I don't want to take much of your time because you have answered so many political questions. Coming to the point, ASEAN Free Trade Agreement of 13th August 2009 came into effect on 1/1/2010 in 3 of the member countries, namely Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand, and their bilateral trade is growing every year to their mutual benefit. I am anxious to know from Your Excellency when the FTA will come into effect in your country so that the full benefits of liberalization agreement will be achieved for both Philippines and India.
Well, we acknowledge, sorry, we acknowledge that the Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand were far ahead or were in a position to take advantage of this free trade agreement earlier than the Philippines. Having said that, I think we are very glad that India has already allowed a 94% market opening for Philippine products. The Philippines is trying to catch up. We are presently at the 74% level. We recognize how important a market India is for the Philippines. We also recognize, we want to foster very, shall we say, better relations with India. And towards that end, we have noted there's a 50% growth in trade between the Philippines and India, which was at the $1.06 billion level in 2011. It is now, in 2014 or 15, $1.59 billion already. There is very huge potential. One of your major industrial conglomerates, Tata, is already present in the Philippines, and has timed its entry correctly in that there have been something like 26% growth in yearly sales of cars in particular. We have an increasing middle class that is in need of such products. So there is huge potential, largely untapped, between India and the Philippines that we seek to tap at the soonest possible time for both our countries' mutual benefits. So again, a lot of complementary, shall we say, relationships of trade, things that we need that you can produce and things that we can produce that you undoubtedly need, leads to so much potential. And also, shall we say, a commonality of problems also is apparent. Lessons that can be learned, for instance, in your telcos, in our managing our own telcos. I can go on and on about the list, but we have been trying to really deepen the relations between the Philippines and India in so many different aspects, and I think we're already bearing fruit from this. Although admittedly, we were not in a position to take advantage in 2009. We are in a position to take advantage at this point in time after the reforms we brought about during the start of our watch. Thank you, sir.
And one more small question, Mr. President. I'm very happy that under the presidency of Your Excellency during the last 6 years, Philippines has grown by leaps and bounds and has become one of the fastest growing economies, not only in Asia but also in the world. I want to ask you regarding this, a large number of Indian students are aspiring to become doctors by joining the medical institute in Philippines because of the high quality and globally recognized medical education offered here. Full stop. I want to know from Your Excellency whether Philippines will encourage more and more Indian students to come to Philippines and study medicine by giving them incentives like scholarships so that people to people relationship between our two countries can grow.
That is worth exploring, sir. We will have to secure authority from our Congress in the expenditure of public funds for people who are not our citizens. But I think that is worth exploring. That's the first time that proposal has reached my ears. I will task both the Department of our Health, our Commission on Higher Education, and lastly, the Department of Budget and Management to study the particular matter and see if this is something that we can offer in the near future.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That brings to a close our open forum for this meeting.
We would like to thank His Excellency and thank you, Mr. Secretary. We shall now proceed with a photo opportunity with the President and the officials and members of one IFRA committee. May we request the members of the committee to please come up on stage. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, gentlemen. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our program with His Excellency. We'd like to thank again Mr. President for gracing the occasion. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, President Benigno S. Aquino III. Thank you, and mabuhay! We'd like to request everyone to please remain in the hall.